Welcome to Book to Blueprint, where powerful books become practical blueprints for real life. You do not need more information, you need execution. This is Book to Blueprint. You know that feeling, right? You're in an argument, you've got the facts on your side, and you're just thinking, why can't we just agree on this and move on? We've all been there. But what if that whole question is, well, wrong? Stanley Fish, in his book Winning Arguments, makes this really radical claim that kind of flips our whole idea of disagreement on its head. So let's dive in and see what he's talking about. And really, this is the big puzzle, isn't it? I mean, we're swimming in information. We have facts just a Google search away. And yet, somehow we seem more divided, more stuck in our arguments than ever. It's so frustrating. Why is it that just laying out the evidence, plain as day, so often does absolutely nothing to end a debate? Well, according to Stanley Fish, it's because we're asking the completely wrong question. See, his whole point is that we don't use arguments to go out and find some truth that's already out there. No, he says that argument is the very air we breathe. It's the engine that actually creates what we call truth. And that idea, well, that changes everything. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into this idea of the unwinnable argument that you're already a part of. Then, we'll look at why Fish says argument is literally everything. After that, we'll see how every single argument has its own rulebook. We'll even see how that plays out in real life, comparing arguments at home to what happens in politics. And finally, we'll figure out what the real art of winning is all about. Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty wild idea. You can't just stand on the sidelines and decide if you want to jump into an argument. Nope, you're already in it. Now, to explain this, Fish uses a really brilliant and kind of hilarious example, the old Monty Python argument clinic sketch. If you've seen it, you know. A guy walks in and says he wants to pay for an argument. And the whole joke is that he instantly finds himself in an argument about what an argument even is. He thinks he can buy it, treat it like a product he can control from the outside. But he finds out pretty quick, you just can't. In that little sketch, it just perfectly shows a couple of key things. First, you're never just arguing in some abstract way. You're always arguing about something real, even if that something is, well, what an argument is. And second, you don't get to decide when it's over. Remember when the guy says, "I've had enough?" The other guy just goes, "No, you haven't," and it keeps right on going. And that's the real kicker here. Argument is this wild, uncontrollable force. It's not a tool we can just pick up and put down. We're basically swimming in it. So all of this leads to the real heart of the book, a massive philosophical shift. It's a total reframing of how we even think about truth and knowledge. So check this out, because this is a really important contrast. Most of us, right, we grow up with what you could call a foundationalist view. The idea is that truth, with a capital T, is out there somewhere, like buried treasure. And logic and facts, those are the map we use to find it. And once we dig it up, hey, argument over. But Fish, he comes along with this anti-foundationalist view. And in his world, there is no buried treasure. Truth is something we build together through arguing. It's something that's always being shaped and reshaped. Now, to be super clear here, anti-foundationalism isn't saying there's no such thing as truth at all. Not at all. It's saying that truth is a human product. It's what comes out of our debates, our disagreements, our conversations. It's not something that just gets zapped down from the heavens. And that, right there, is why argument is so incredibly important. It's literally our main tool for building the world we live in. Okay, so if we're living in this world that's basically made of arguments, how on earth do we navigate it? Well, the key, the absolute key, is to realize that not all arguments are created equal. They actually all play by a completely different set of rules. And Fish is really, really clear on this point. He's basically saying, forget any idea of a one-size-fits-all strategy for winning. It just doesn't exist. And why not? Because every single argument you have is happening inside a specific context, right? It could be a courtroom, a classroom, a political debate, or just dinner with your family. And each of those places has its own unique unspoken rule book for what's a fair move and what's out of bounds. A really good way to get your head around this is to think about sports. Imagine trying to score a touchdown in the middle of a basketball game. It's not just a bad move, it's complete nonsense. People would look at you like you're crazy, you're playing by the wrong rules. And it's the exact same thing with arguments. The kind of stuff that works in a political campaign, that would get you laughed out of a scientific conference. You've got to know what game you're playing. So let's make this concrete. Let's see how this whole different rules thing applies in the real world by looking at two places we all know well, politics and our personal lives. Just look at how the goal completely changes the rules of the game. In politics, what's the goal? It's votes, it's power. So things like emotional appeals, stoking fear, even smear campaigns, they become acceptable tactics. But try that at home. In a domestic argument, the goal is to maintain the relationship, the connection. So those exact same moves become totally destructive. You see? Using the wrong rule book isn't just a bad idea, it's a recipe for absolute disaster. And Fish has this really powerful insight when it comes to arguments at home. He points out, and a lot of marriage experts agree, that most of these arguments can't actually be solved like a math problem. Why? Because they're usually not about the thing you think you're arguing about, like whose turn it is to take out the trash. No, they're almost always rooted in these really deep, fundamental differences in who you are as people, your personalities, your values, your core needs. And you can't really solve that. And that's exactly why so many of our go-to moves in a fight with a partner are actually huge mistakes. You know, trying to prove you're factually right, you're completely missing the point, because it's almost never about the facts, it's about the feelings. And throwing out those big bombs like, you always, or you never, that's not a winning strategy. That's how you damage a relationship. In this particular game, the only way to win is to completely stop trying to score points on each other and just focus on keeping that connection alive. So let's just take stock for a second. If arguments never really end, if they all have different rules, and if a lot of them can't even be solved, then what in the world does it even mean to win an argument? And that brings us to the final and maybe most important takeaway. Here it is, the big mindset shift. Are you ready? Stop trying to be right. Just stop. In a world where none of us has a perfect God's eye view of the truth, proving you're absolutely 100% right is impossible. It can't be done. The real goal, the only one you can actually achieve, is to persuade. It's about convincing someone, moving them a little closer to your point of view, even just for a moment, while playing by the rules of whatever game you're in. And guess what? The tools for doing this are ancient. We're talking Aristotle thousands of years ago. He laid them out. You've got logos, that's the logical part, the facts and reason in your argument. Then there's ethos, that's your credibility, your character. Basically, why should anyone listen to you? And finally, pathos, that's the appeal to emotions, to people's values. And the secret to real persuasion is almost always a smart mix of all three, custom fit for the situation you're in. So, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. The next time you find yourself in an argument, and you will because we're all swimming in that endless sea that Stanley Fish talks about, just stop for a second and ask yourself two things. First, am I playing the right game here? Do I even know the rules? And second, what's my real goal? Am I just trying to prove that I'm right? Or am I actually trying to persuade? Seriously, thinking about that might just change everything. If you have a book in mind that should be added to our list, comment below. If this blueprint helped you, subscribe, like, and build with us. More blueprints are coming. Stay intentional, stay consistent. We are doing this one book at a time. And remember, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So share this with them and grow together. Real progress becomes stronger when it is shared. Build your life one blueprint at a time. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you do.